Hello, and welcome to Foundations of Affordable Housing. This is part 4 of a 6-part series. Today we'll be talking about how affordable housing works. Here's an illustration of the problem we have. Market rate housing is not affordable to our family here. It costs about $3,600 per month, in our example, to develop and operate an apartment, and our family can only afford to pay $1,800 in rent. For our family to have a safe, stable home here, we have to figure out how to close that $1,800 gap. Like residents and market rate housing, families who live in affordable housing pay rent, but the rents they can afford to pay are often too low to cover the full costs of building, making monthly loan payments, and ongoing management for a rental property. The gap between the amount of money it takes to develop and operate a rental property and the rent revenue needs to be filled for an affordable housing development to be completed successfully. To fill the gap, developers usually need help in the form of a subsidy. That allows affordable housing to be financed to be self-sustaining. How? Public funding usually helps cover the costs of development, from architects and engineers to construction. Since the developer is borrowing less money, they have less money to pay back each month. This reduces the monthly cost of operating the development so that the lower rents are able to cover the lower operating costs, making the development sustainable in the long term. So back to our original illustration. The gap is closed by subsidies, usually from the federal, state, or local government, but it can also come from other sources, used to help cover construction costs. Assistance with the construction costs reduces the amount of money the developer needs to borrow, and that reduces the monthly costs of operating the development. To meet the needs of households with the lowest incomes, often including people who are senior adults or are disabled, some developments also include federal rental assistance in the form of a Section 8 voucher, which helps tenants pay the rents needed to cover the cost of operating the development. Developers must assemble many sources of funding to help fill the affordable housing funding gap. Developers usually try to use the fewest number of subsidy sources possible because each additional source of subsidy makes funding more complex. For example, each subsidy comes with its own set of legal restrictions. To reach the lowest income families with the greatest needs, a developer might need to cobble together multiple subsidy sources to make the project financially feasible. A project isn't feasible and can't be built unless it covers 100% of its funding gap, so every source of funding matters. The Low-Income Housing Tax Credit, sometimes called LIHTC, is the most common and usually the largest source of subsidy. Developers also need a commercial bank loan, just like you or I would, to cover a portion of the costs. Loan underwriters have to consider the property's cash flow when deciding how much to loan. So if units are being offered to families with lower income levels at lower rents, the developer will receive less money in the loan. You'll see other federal and state sources listed here, but I want to draw your attention to the local government loan and county and regional bond measures pieces. It's just a couple of pieces of the puzzle, but they're really important ones. Because even though they're just a couple of relatively small pieces of the funding puzzle, without them the affordable housing development may not be able to close the gap. A relatively small local or regional contribution can be the critical investment that makes the project work, allowing the project to proceed and the community to benefit from a large amount of federal and state subsidy that would otherwise flow to a different community. Usually about $3 to $5 of state or federal investment for every $1 of local investment. Without that, we don't pay less taxes, we just lose the ability to leverage all of these state and federal resources to invest in our community. And we get nothing instead of the affordable housing we need. So I want to address this question that we hear a lot. I heard affordable housing costs a lot to build. The truth is that all housing is expensive to build in the Bay Area. We have high costs for land, for labor, for materials, and financing. Affordable housing costs about 10% more to build than market rate housing for a very good reason. Affordable housing delivers higher wages for workers and larger units for families than market rate developments. So, an apartment that has 3 bedrooms will cost more to build than a studio or a 1 bedroom apartment. Affordable housing is also built to higher development standards. Many affordable housing developments now are built with LEED certification, which is a certification of energy efficiency. That also helps lower costs, operating costs each month, to enable developers to offer these apartments to lower income households at lower rents. More durable finishes also help apartments last longer. So, this quality helps developers sustain the operations of the apartment over the 55 years that we're requiring affordability, and the developer doesn't have a lot of money coming in from rents to cover the cost of maintenance and repairs. So, these higher development standards protect a public investment by making sure the building is going to last. So, affordable housing really delivers significant benefits to the public. We're getting more for our money. I also want to note permanent affordable housing is still the most cost effective way to address the needs of people who are unhoused.